January 5. 62. B.C. Lucius Sergius Catiline, the Roman conspirator, killed in Etruria. The history of his life unfolds a series of most revolting crimes. But there is reason to believe that some of them are unreal. Murder, rapine and conflagration were the first pleasures of his life. Pompey, Crassus and Cã favored his schemes, with a view to their own aggrandizement. Only 2 Romans remained determined to uphold their fallen country: Cato and Cicero. The speeches of the latter in the Roman Senate on the crisis of affairs are imperishable monuments of eloquence and patriotism, and produced the overthrow of the conspirators. 5 of them were put to death, and Catiline, being surrounded by the army under Petreius, resolved to die sword in hand. The battle was fought with desperation, and the insurgents fell, with their leader at their head. 1066. Edward the Confessor, King of England, died. He was called to the throne 1041. He was not the immediate heir, but his claim was supported of Godwin, Earl of Kent, whose daughter Edith he married. He was a weak and superstitious prince, and acquired the title of saint or confessor by abstaining from nuptial connection with his queen. He was the first English monarch who undertook to cure the king's evil by touching the patient. With him ended the Saxon line of kings. 1477. Charles the Bold, Duke of Burgundy, killed in battle on this or the following day. This prince, the son of Philip the Good and Isabella of Portugal, early displayed a violent, impetuous and ambitious disposition, and in after life was constantly embroiled in unjust and cruel warfare, in which he performed many daring exploits. But having turned his arms against the Swiss, the fortune of war turned against him, and being deserted by his allies, with his usual temerity risked a battle with only 4,000 men against a vastly superior force, was defeated and killed by the thrust of a lance in the 44th year of his age. His body covered with blood and mire, and his head embedded in the ice, was not found till 2 days after the battle, when it was so disfigured that his own brother did not recognize it. With him expired the feudal government of Burgundy. 1531. The Electoral College assembled at Rome and elected Ferdinand, brother of Charles V, King of the Romans. He was crowned a few days after at Aix-la-Chapelle. 1536. Catherine of Aragon, the repudiated queen of Henry VIII, died. She was the youngest daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella, born 1483. She was first married to Arthur, Prince of Wales, who died 5 months after, and the king, unwilling to return her dowry, caused her to be contracted to his remaining son, Henry. The prince, at the age of 15, made a public protest against this proceeding, but finally consented to the match. Notwithstanding the inequality of their ages and the capricious disposition of the king, they had been married 20 years when the division took place. The separation led to a divorce from the Pope also, and was the cause of mighty effects. 1559. Catherine de' Medicis died. She was born at Florence 1519, married, 1533, the Dauphin, afterwards Henry II, of France. She was 3 times regent of France, and during her administration made a conspicuous figure in the annals of Europe by her political genius. By her was begun the Palace of the Tuileries. But the lasting monument of her fame and iniquity is the massacre of St. Bartholomew's, which was brought about by her intrigues, when more than 50,000 Protestants were massacred in one day. 1621. Paul van Sommer died in London. He was born at Antwerp, 1576, and arrived at great proficiency as a painter. His pencil was chiefly employed on portraits of royal and eminent personages, and is said to have equaled Van Dyck. 1636. Petreius, who had recently arrived from Holland in the capacity of a patroon, sent his colonists over to Staten Island from Fort Amsterdam, to commence the colony and buildings. 1675. Turenne defeated the imperialists at Turkheim. 1705. Second volcanic opening of the peak of Tenerife, in the ravine of Almerchiga, a league from Icor. It closed on the 13th of the same month. 1722. Bell, the traveler, arrived at Moscow on the return from China. See July 14, 1719. The account of this journey, and of what he saw and learned at Pekin, is the most valuable part of his book, and one of the best and most interesting relations ever written by any traveler. 1724. Zlatan Petrarch died, aged 184, at a village near Temeswar, in Hungary. He was born in the year 1539, and at the time the Turks took Temeswar from the Christians. He was employed in keeping his father's cattle. A few days before his death he had walked with the help of a stick to the post house to ask charity of the travelers. His hair and beard were of a greenish-white color, like moldy bread, and he had a few of his teeth remaining, and enjoyed a little eyesight. His son, who was 97 years of age, declared that his father had married at an extreme age, for the third time, and that he was born in this last marriage. He had descendants in the fifth generation, with whom he sometimes sported, carrying them in his arms. His son, though 97, was still fresh and vigorous. The commandant of Temeswar, on learning of his sickness, caused his portrait to be painted, and it was nearly finished when he expired. 1757. Damiens attempted the assassination of Louis XV, for which he was condemned to the most cruel tortures, and finally quartered by 4 horses. C. March 28. 1764. A comet was first seen at Tewkesbury, England, near 2 small stars in the hand of Boots. 1776. The New Hampshire Provincial Convention resolved to change the form of government. 1781. Arnold invaded Virginia with 1,500 British troops. He marched to Richmond, destroyed the public stores and buildings, the rope walk, and much private property. 1781. The British ship Warwick, Captain Elphinstone, captured the Dutch ship Rotterdam, 50 guns and 300 men, the first material capture during that war. 1782. Trincomalee in the island of Ceylon, taken by the British under Admiral Sir Edward Hughes. 1783. Honor, situated between Panion and Bombay, taken by assault by the British Gen Matthews. The garrison and many of the inhabitants were cruelly slaughtered. 1795. The French attacked the British Gen Dundas at Geldermalsen, and compelled him to fall back to Buren, and afterwards the whole force of Gen Walmaden to cross the Lick. 1795. The British ships Bellona and Alarm captured the French ship Le Dumas of 20 guns, off Desaida. 1796. Samuel Huntington, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, died. He was born at Windham, Connecticut, 1732. His father, being a farmer, could allow him only a common school education, but his own assiduity made up the deficiency, so that at the age of 22 he commenced the study of the law with borrowed books. In 1764 he was sent to the General Assembly. 1765 appointed King's Attorney. 1774 raised to the bench of the Supreme Court. 1775 sent a delegate to the General Congress of the Colonies, and in 1779 succeeded John Jay as President of Congress. At the time of his death he was Governor of Connecticut. 1797. British ship Polyphemus, Captain Lumsdaine, captured the French ship L'Uranie, 38 guns, off Ireland. 1798. A bill passed the House and Congress paying Kosciuszko $12,800, and the 4 daughters of Count de Grasse $400 each per annum for 5 years. 1799. Treaty of Defensive Alliance between England and Turkey. 1806. Breslau surrendered to the French under Vandamme, Luyut, Gentithile, Maj, Gencrafty and 5,500 Prussians taken. 1807. British sloop Nautilus, Captain Palmer, lost on a rock near Parry, in the archipelago of the Seven Islands. The captain refused to leave the vessel, and was lost in his 26th year. 1809. The British rearguard under Sir John Moore attacked by the French vanguard under Soult. Jean Colbert, aged 30, was mortally wounded, and the French were compelled to fall back. 1812. The French Genleval was compelled to abandon the siege of Tariffa, defended by the British Call. Scarred. 1814. Gluckstadt surrendered to the British. 1814. British ships Bacchante and Saracen captured the fortress of Cattaro after a cannonade of 10 days. 1827. Frederick, Duke of York, died. He was the second son of George III, born in 1763. 1787 took his seat in the House of Peers. 1789 fought a duel, firing his pistol in the air. 1791 married the eldest daughter of the King of Prussia, from whom he afterwards separated. 1793 went to Flanders at the head of the British army, and in the end showed himself unequal to the station. 1809 was called to account by the House of Commons for the follies committed in the army through the influence of a female favored. 1818 was appointed the keeper of his father, with a salary of £10,000. Although enjoying princely salaries and pensions, he died, universally lamented by his tailors and other creditors to the amount of some hundred thousands of pounds. 1841. James Abraham Hillhouse, an eminent American poet, died at New Haven, Connecticut, aged 51. 1845. The national debt of England amounted at this time to £794,193,645. 1849. The discovery of the magnetic clock by Drive Lock of Ohio, announced to the Secretary of the Navy by Lieutenant Maury of the National Observatory. 1852. Eugene Levesque died at Paris, aged 81. Author of Travels in America. 1852. Benjamin La Roque died at Paris, aged 54. French translator of Shakespeare. 1852. Baron Kamenny, a Hungarian chief, eminent for his patriotism and exploits in the struggle with Austria and Russia, died aged 53. 1853. Charles W. Morgan, an American Commodore, died, aged 63. He was a nephew of Jim Morgan of the Revolution, and distinguished himself in the action between the Constitution and the Guerrilla. 1853. Revolution in Mexico. Generosa resigned, and Cevallos elected president ad interim. 1854. The steamer San Francisco, which had withstood a heavy gale, was foundered at sea, Of 700 persons on board, 247 had been washed overboard before assistance arrived. 1855. Gen. Castilla defeated President Echenique and entered Lima in triumph. 1855. The entire Victoria Bridge across the St. Lawrence, carried away by the ice.